Hi, I'm Kent. Let's do some alterations to my sphere form. So when I designed my sphere, I went ahead and put a relatively small hole in the top to be able to pour in and out of. And I did that mostly because I knew I could always cut the hole larger and it's really hard to make the hole smaller. With this form here, I think it would work pretty well as a really unique vase, or if I put a hole in the bottom as a cool planter. However, I think we can do some modifications to alter its appearance. So one of the simplest things to do is actually just cut the hole larger, and I've done that on a few of these pots. Sometimes the rim doesn't come out exactly right, and then it's relatively straightforward to go ahead and trim it larger. I guess an extreme example of that would be this pot here, which is basically just half of it. Here I actually just slip cast to the bottom half. But you can imagine basically going anywhere between here and getting a pot somewhere in between. So here's the original unaltered form, and we can imagine go ahead and turning this into a planter. And I can do that magically just like this. These are my stand-in succulents. I can't kill these, luckily. And that's a pretty cool effect. Or we can go ahead and take that and transfer it into the larger pot. Something like that. And with the larger hole, we can go ahead and squeeze in some more plants. Or fake plants in this case. However, I realized we're not limited to just making the hole bigger on the top. We can actually shift it around. That's what I want to try in this video. I want to go ahead and make another planter, only I want to shift the location of the hole. So move my plants out of the way. Here is a pot I cast yesterday. This is basically straight as it comes out of the mold, only it started to dry, so it's a little hard. I haven't done anything to the seam. This is basically as it came out of the mold. Just stacking the molds has been working pretty well for me. And the rim here could use some attention, and that's what we're going to address by cutting our hole into it. So what I want to do is go ahead and cut probably a relatively large hole off center. So that way we have a view kind of looking into it. And to do that, I want some sort of template so I can cut the hole in an even way. So I'm going to try this. Yeah, I think that'll look pretty well. So here's just a deli container. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and trace around the outside edge here so I know where to cut. And to start, I'm going to use my needle tool. And I want to hold this on here securely so I don't wind up moving it around. Just going to score around. There we go, just like that. So that will be the new hole that I'm going to try and carve. All right, got a knife here, and I'm just going to go ahead and carve in. Let's go around here carefully. This is getting to be a little bit dry. I don't want to crack it. I'm staying on the safe side of my line here. You always go back and cut more. Again, it's hard to uncut. So far, so good. I haven't cut over my line yet. All right, there's once all the way around. I don't think I'm all the way through. Actually, I know I'm not all the way through. I can see on the inside. I think I just about have it. Plunging the knife all the way in seems to work well. There we go. That is definitely not the prettiest of seams. Probably should have done this a couple hours earlier. However, there was a bunch of construction noise outside, so we will adapt. All right, there is a very rough outline, and you can see from the side profile, we have a nice kind of cool angle here. I'm gonna use my original score line on the outside as a guide here. Just go around. If I really wanted to do a bunch of these that were all the same, I could modify the mold and shape cast and just slip cast this hole in here. I'm pretty sure that would work okay. But for a one-off thing, I think this will work just fine. It's not exactly even, but I think a sponge will go ahead and fix that. I want this rounded over, I think, anyways. All right, there we go. And the last thing I want to do is clean up the seam here on the outside. For that, I found just a straight razor blade. Works pretty well, and I just scrape around the outside very gently. That way I can take off the high side of either the bottom or the top, whichever way it happens to be leaning. And I think I want to turn this into a planter, so I'm going to go ahead and put a hole in the bottom as well. For that, I'll use a spade bit usually. Try and find the center. I get to the point where I score the outside, and the hole goes all the way to the inside. So now I can do the same from the inside. So I scored the inside. And that will help minimize any chip out I've found. And then just nice and slow. There's the hole. There we go. And I think I'll go around the outside with the sponge, just get the seam real quick. There is one modified form, definitely handmade, but I think that's actually pretty cool. So in comparison, that's what we started with. I've got a glaze firing coming up, so I think I'm going to go ahead and fire this raw instead of glazing it. All I need to do in that case is to let it dry out thoroughly and put it in with the rest of my glazed pots, and then I'll wind up with a raw clay pot. Basically something like this, only with our modified form. I have to wait, but you can see the results right now. And here it is. So this is what my raw clay looks like when it's just been fired. So it's nice and hard at this point. And I'm really pleased with this. I think it's a really cool form. Not too sure how well it comes across on camera, but that angle is actually really interesting. And here's another that I made that is unmodified, and I think side by side you can really tell the difference. In general, I'm a fan of letting the molds do the work, and that's part of the reason I built shitcasts, so I can actually go ahead and create molds to my fancy. However, occasionally it is really nice to go ahead and get some different forms out of the same molds. So this is a relatively subtle change, but I actually think has a relatively big impact. It'd probably be a surprise that they came out of the same mold. So let me go ahead and replant these. There we go, a florist I am not. However, I think that's pretty cool. So here I have a nice tight cluster towards the top, and then I think this one you can take advantage of the form and really have things flow over the edge. I do have a handful of succulents, but they haven't grown up quite like this yet. So I have one other idea I want to try with this sphere, and that will be a video coming up. In the meantime, do you guys have any other ideas of modifications I can do to this existing form? I'm really curious to hear what you think. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks.